Good morning and welcome to a simple mission editor tutorial. How to create a simple mission. We'll show you how to use a few triggers, how to create working SAM sites, tankers, AWACS, a carrier group, things like that. Getting into the mission editor, we'll create a new mission. Choose the map you want. We'll do Persian Gulf in this case. There's presets, modern World War II, whatever you want, but I usually create my own coalitions. You have everything listed in the middle. Just select to the blue side and red side, whichever you want. I usually select the USAF aggressors to the red side. That way we fly against the red, like F-18s, F-14s, things like that. Have US ground targets as well. But do as you want, and here we go. We'll get to it. Okay. So we're here in the mission editor. First thing I'm going to do is assign some air bases to their own coalitions. So we'll do Liwa as the blue air base, and let's see. We're going to make let's make Albatine here red. These rings around the different bases, you can set. You can make these bases capturable, so we can capture red and turn it blue if you have forces within the circle. That's what those mean. But that's one reason for assigning red and blue. Another is, I believe, also has to do with like rearming. If you land at a blue air base, you should be able to rearm. We're gonna have some units here at this base. Maybe we'll put a SAM site. By the way, down here at the bottom, you have different presets. Map, which that one's useful for seeing really high terrain. And then you have a satellite. I like this one because you can actually see all the city buildings. And then this other one, a little bit clearer, I would say. We'll use satellite in this case. So we're going to say that this base has been captured. We need to attack it. So why don't we load in a couple static targets. We'll show you how to do that. There's a bridge looking icon over here underneath the objects menu, and we'll go to let's use Russia because they have a lot of different choices. Alright, so we'll use Russia and structures, and why don't we do by the way, if you have mods enabled right now, then your mission will be saved requiring those mods. So for one group I fly in, if I happen to have those enabled, even though I may not be selecting some of those static objects or whatever, it will now be required. At least in my experience, it seems like everybody will have to have that. So I'm making sure that my mods were all off for this. It's just a little word of warning. We'll put a couple hangars down on this end, and we'll just kind of align them. There we go. Now if you select it and do a Control-C and a Control-V, you can copy and paste as well. So that's how you drop in static objects. We'll just load a couple there, and let's maybe put we'll put a couple aircraft on the ramp that we can hit as well. We'll put an A-50, and then how about we'll put like a MiG-29 or something sitting there. Su-27 would be good. There we go. So a couple planes parked. A couple planes, couple static objects that we could destroy. Let's see. How about let's get the base defended by some AAA and manpads. So let's go to the ground units, and we'll just name this air defense. And we'll make their skill excellent. And let's see, let's put one here. Don't need to add waypoints for him, we're just going to be editing. And we're going to make a second one and a third one. I'll just kind of space them out like such. There we go. Now let's add How about a couple shilkas? And we'll put these kind of evenly in between them. And then maybe some man pads. So we'll do communications, and then we'll do just some of the man pads themselves. And we'll have these guys just hanging out. We'll hang out by the middle bunker. There we go. A whole group of these guys just kind of over here. Now, with the air defenses, we can go into advanced waypoint actions and add an option of rules of engagement to weapon free. So now these guys will engage anything that comes in their threat rings in here. Now let's also get this place defended by a SAM site. So we'll go back to air defenses and we'll set up an SA3. Now this principle should be pretty much the same for any SAM site that you want to use. It's important that you have to have one of each unit listed. So you see there's 2 for SA2, there's 2 of them for SA3, same with SA6. And SA10 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like 6 different items in there. So a unit will require one of each of those. For the SA3, most of them you'll see a TR and an LN, TR, LN, so it's track radar and launcher. So we're going to start with a track radar. We'll put him out here on this island. Okay, and he's facing this direction, so they're going to spawn behind him. Oops, don't want to add a waypoint. Let's move him out here. So let's add a second unit, but that's going to be the launcher. Let's add 4 launchers. And we'll just space the launchers out a little bit. There. Now we'll add a search radar. We'll put him just kind of off separate from the track radar. Now all these different units I'm adding in here, the extra ones, I saw a tutorial once because I couldn't get my SAM sites working correctly. Somebody included all of these and it works for me. I don't know how many of these extra ones are going to be required, but I put them in, so very well. I mean, it can't really hurt, right? Okay, so we got search radar. So that's it for air defense group. We'll add another one of unarmed. We'll do a mobile command post. We'll do one more of a fuel truck. One more GPU, ground power unit. And then finally we'll do an armored Ural transport truck. And then these will just move around wherever you want them to be. They just all, I think, need to be kind of in the same area. And you could change, of course, which way they're heading, so it doesn't look like, it's just, it looks a little bit maybe more realistic. But anyway, that's it for a SAM site, except the final touch. Again, we're going to go add an advanced waypoint action. We're going to set option ROE to weapon free. Alright, so now our SA3 is here and ready to shoot down anybody that comes in this area. Now I'll add another one here. I want to show you everybody's favorite. He's going to be a separate group, the SA15, because you've all probably seen how they can shoot down incoming harms. Here, we'll put him over here by himself. I want to show you how to do that. Advanced waypoint, option ROE, weapon free, and now we're going to add one more option, engage air weapons. Here we go. So you've seen that the SA-15 is capable, and there's probably others that are capable of shooting down incoming missiles and weapons, probably the JSOWs. I haven't tried with the JSOWs. But if you do engage air weapons and have this box checked, right now it's the weapon, engage air weapons is on, so it will shoot down weapons coming in. If you uncheck that, it's off. We'll just leave that off for now. But that is how you do that. So that is this first part. We have added static objects, some targets to destroy. We've defended the base with AAA man pads, and we've added a working SAM site and then the SA-15 as well. So in the next step, we'll be adding tanker, AWACS, and a carrier group. So the next step, before we start adding the tanker and carrier group and all that, let's do land-based units. Alright, we'll select US, and actually we'll do the F-16. There we go. Now if you want client flown or a player flown, then you do have to select client. Sometimes you'll see the option here for player, but yeah, you want to select client, and we'll drop that right there. Now when we drop him in the map, it says turning point, so he's actually airborne. We don't want that. We're going to choose to take off from parking. Now, yeah, the options: take off from runway. He will be lined up on the runway, ready to take off. Take off from ramp. That would be a parking spot and cold cockpit, so the plane is not running. And then parking hot. The plane will be at parking and is running, ready to be armed up and go. We'll just do takeoff from parking hot. So he snaps right here to parking spot 6. That happened to be, that was basically where we were dropping him on top of. Let's add a few waypoints for him. So we'll take off. We'll make a rejoin out here. And then we'll just put a target right there. Now the others were airborne. You know, all the altitudes were up, or all the waypoint altitudes were in the air. I don't really mess with that. If you have an A10, you can set the altitude. The pilot will see that in the HUD, that the altitude is at 15,000 feet for that waypoint. And then if you set it at ground elevation on the target or on that waypoint, then it will, you know, if you had a TGP like in the Hornet, if we set 0 MSL, there it changed to 13 feet MSL, and that shows 13 feet. Right down here is the altitude for that waypoint. So now, like an F-18, if you did waypoint designate to waypoint 3, it would snap right to this location. You would see right here at the TGP. Makes it easier to find. So we'll just add 3 waypoints there for the F-16. Actually, we'll add a 4th one back here, and then a 5th one. We'll change that to landing. There we go. That's the route for the F-16. Now you can come in. Let's go back to edit. And let's see, what do we want to call sign? Will be Springfield. Frequency of 305, that's fine. We'll change his loadout in here, and I'm assuming you know how to, you've been playing this game for a while, so you know how to change your loadout. But in the mission editor, you just come to this little tab here, and then you select, just right click whatever you want, add them on. You can change the ammo type here, and then the paint skin to whatever you want. Fuel load, chaff flares, gun load, all that stuff right in this box. I'm not going to do anything with the loadout right now for this tutorial. Okay, let's add a wingman for him. We'll add a second one. Now he went to, oops, let's go back to waypoint 0. He's at parking spot 8. If we wanted 7, then you just select 7. But 8 works well. They'll both come out together. Okay, that is our land-based group. Now let's add we'll add a tanker. We'll select from over here the aircraft objects, and we're going to call our tanker Arco. And we'll do a KC-135. Now, let's see, maybe we should, yeah, let's go ahead and change the F-16s. And we'll change that actually, yeah, to an F-18, because our tanker is going to be able to, we want him to refuel both this flight and the carrier flight that we'll add later. Okay, so now we're going to add Arco, and he's going to be the KC-135 MPRS. Excellent skill. Now we dropped him in there and his altitude was 65, 62. We don't want that. We'll just put him up at 20,000. and 430 knots. We'll add a few waypoints for him. And let's see, let's edit, and we're going to put him off this direction. 1 and 2. There we go. Now normally he's not going to be this close to Sam, so he'll be doing a left orbit, so that'd be fine. But normally you'd have him a ways off, but here we'll move him out just a little bit further. Okay, I have him spawning in the air, flying to waypoint 1, where he will be on station at, and then we're going to make him orbit between these two. You don't have to have the 3 different, the spawn and then the 2. You could have him spawning and then just 1 and make him run an orbit in between those 2. But I'm going to make him fly to a point where he'll be on station. You could do this, you could drag him to the airfield and make him take off from the runway to fly to that point and enter his holding pattern. We'll just do it this way. But what I'll do with waypoint 0, the spawn location selected, actually I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to finish up here. We wanted this guy Arco. We'll name him 2-1, his frequency 251, that's fine. Now we'll come down to advanced waypoint. Now he spawns in with the TACAN activated, and we'll just give him this 15x call sign. We'll do ARC for Arco, and then unit. We're going to associate him with pilot 3, which is his pilot number right here. Okay, let's add another waypoint action. Perform command invisible. Now, invisible just means he is invisible to the AI, so if he happened to fly over a SAM or some MiG spawn, they wouldn't come in and see him and shoot him down. I use that a lot for just goofing around, small missions, or just practice missions or whatever. Normally, if you're doing a real mission, you probably wouldn't want to do that because you might want to be defending him. You might want the enemy to see him and shoot him down. At the same time, I'm going to also add in an immortal as well, so that we'll prevent some accidents from happening. Get him a little bit further away from some of the SAM radar. Okay, there we go. So our tanker's in there, and now why don't we add a AWACS? So we'll call this Dark Star, and we're going to make Dark Star an E2. Let's make him an E3, and he'll also be excellent. Dark Star 3-1, and we'll make him 255, and he'll be up at 26,000 feet. How about that? And then we'll make him orbit right out here. Edit. And we'll go back, and he doesn't have TACAN, we don't need that, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make him invisible and immortal. And then, we didn't finish for Arco, so I'm going to select the point where he will start his orbit, and I'm going to add an option of perform task orbit. Now, altitude is the same, but the speed's always different. So I'm going to change it back to 430. It works out to, I think, about 300, 310 or so at that altitude. So now he will fly to that point and then orbit left turns between points 1 and 2. So at the same time, we don't want the AWACS orbiting. Well, actually, his orbit will be plenty small. So we'll add in a task to orbit at 26,000, and we'll just type in the 430. You can play around with the speeds if you want. There we go. Okay, so we've now set up both the tanker and the AWACS, and we'll get to setting up the carrier group here next. We'll set up the carrier group here in just a second, but one thing I also just thought of, the information that we did, 15 X-ray and 251 and Arco, we could start saving some of this in the briefing over here. You can go in later and put a whole mission overview if you want tasking and whatnot, but for the time being, I kind of like to save stuff as I go, just for my testing purposes later. That way you can pull it up from the within the game when you're flying, and you can see the information for testing. So Arco, and then we had Dark Star, which we did was 255. There we go. So we'll just save that as we go. Now let's do our carrier fleet. So we'll select the ships, and we'll just here we go. Yeah, we'll do them close for a little bit later on. I had some other things in mind. Alright, we're going to name our group just Stennis, and we'll make him excellent, and we'll do a speed of 20 knots, and we're just going to make him follow the coastline, and we'll edit that, or we'll just change back to edit so we can manipulate it. We don't want to keep adding our waypoints. Okay, so he defaults in with frequency 125. That's fine, whatever you want to use. We're going to add a few more ships. Do a Oliver Hazard. We'll do a couple of those. And we'll do a couple of Ticonderogas. How about that? Now what I like to do, like if I had a training mission, maybe we had some new guys that hadn't flown DCS before and you're wanting to teach them how to fly around the carrier. I might put one of these smaller ships, just kind of a beam the Stennis. That way they have kind of a gate they're shooting for, visual gate, for their 350 knot pass, 800 feet. And then I'll take one of these other guys and put him off to the side. You have a ruler down here at the very bottom, and a left click, and you can drag. That's 1.8 miles, so we need to bring him in a bit further. There we go, that's probably about 1.2. Yeah, 1.2 miles. So now they have a visual reference also on their downwind. They come in and brake, tell them just overfly that ship, then that's a good reference for them learning how to set up their downwind. And then just set up these other ships wherever you would want them. Alright, let's go back to our Stennis, number 1. There we go. Now for some reason, he did not spawn in with his TACAN on. It's interesting, usually he does. So that's no problem. We'll come in here, perform command, and activate TACAN. There we go. And we'll just set him as 74 X-ray, and we'll call it Stennis, STN, and then we'll change the unit to 22. Actually, let's just name him CBN 74. If we click out, click back in, double click that, there we go. Now his unit matches here, CBN 74, both spots. We're also going to, let's see, what do we want to do? Let's activate the ICLS. So we have the carrier ILS system, and again we'll set the unit to CBN 74. Alright, so that is all working. One other thing I will do is grab the ruler, put it down here in the middle of the carrier, and just draw along the line a little ways. And the base recovery course, it is pretty dark, but it's a 046. There we go. Come back up here to our notes. See, 74X. And what I say, 046? I think that was right. BRC. There we go. So we'll just save that information as well. Now, one other thing you can do, which is pretty handy, see if I can do this right. Okay, if you come into the radar dish here, if you have your group selected, you pull this up, you can now save this group. So the group selected is Stennis, and here we'll just name it as Stennis template, whatever you want, and then save template. Now should be able to, there, we'll deselect that. If we come in, create and modify, we can come up and, yeah, here we go, Stennis template, and we could drop it right there. So this is kind of handy for the future. Here's another one that I did. Just has a lot more ships in it, so we don't need that. We'll just delete them. Okay, back to our carrier fleet. I want to show you how to add static objects if you wish. So we'll select the static planes, And we'll put F-18s on the deck. And link unit CVN-74. And I'll just move it over here. Well, it snapped right back. Oh, hang on. Offset fixation. There we go. So you want a link unit and then offset fixation. And we're going to pick our CAG skin. Looks nice. Change the heading. There we go. We'll set them right there. And let's do a Control C, Control V. We'll copy paste another one next to them. And we'll just do a line skin. And again, CVN-74 offset fixation. So you could do that with all the planes. Now here, let's paste another one, but we're going to change the type to an F-14. One to show you, even though it is linked and the offset fixation is set, the F-14's wings don't sweep here, so you really just kind of have to eyeball. Let's see, we do just a little more. That looks good. So his wings would come back to right about here and right about there. Yeah, he'd fit in just fine. But you could place them all over helicopters, whatever you want to do. Helicopters, their blades and rotors are usually folded in, so it looks pretty good. Alright, let's do a carrier strike group now. Select the airplane, and we'll do F-18 Stennis. And it will be a client again. And we'll just drop them on the deck. And these guys, we will do, let's do takeoff from runway. So he's going to be, they're all going to spawn. If we did 4 planes, they will spawn on the catapults. Okay, I'm not going to mess again with the loadout, although what I will show you for aircraft, most of them have a radio preset, some of them do not. But we can do channel 1 is 305, we'll say that's their group comm, and then comm 1 channel 2 we'll do 251 and then a 255. So these were the presets for Dark Star and Arco. Alright, now let's go in and add a waypoint, and we're going to make them come out here, and that'd be like their IP maybe. And then they'll come in and they're going to hit the same area. And again, we're going to change this one. We'll hit 0, and it went right to 13 feet. Okay, and then they'll just egress out this way. Now, the carrier, or excuse me, the land-based ones, we made a waypoint for them to come in and land at. You can do that with the carrier, but the carrier is always going to be moving, so usually just make another one out here, the direction for their egress, and then they'll just pull at the tack end and navigate to the carrier. Let's see, these guys will be Dodge. How about that? Yeah, Dodge and Springfield. Okay. So that's how we make our carrier group and the aircraft to spawn on the carrier. Alright, let's give our guys a little bit of opposition. We'll say that let's spawn some MiGs, maybe. Yeah, we'll say that the guys coming in here, they'll be picked up on radar, so we'll have some MiGs coming down here from the northeast. So let's go to the aircraft, and we'll just drop them out here. You have to play with the distances and speeds. And let's call these MiG-21. And Russia, whatever red side you want to use. MiG-21, and we'll make them excellent. And they'll come in at 23,000 feet, and we'll just say 470. And they'll be coming kind of right towards these guys. Change their loadout as well. Change their skin, however you want to do it. Okay, at their starting point, their spawn point, we're going to add an action, I'm sorry, an option here, ROE weapon free. So they spawn in, cap. That was their task right here. So they'll just spawn in and start looking for aircraft. So when they see the F-18s coming either here or here, they'll proceed in hot on them. Now let's set up our trigger. So over here on the left side, we have this little circle with an X, create trigger zone. And we'll just drop it somewhere right there. We're going to call this spawn MiGs. And we'll make the radius 50,000 feet. Pretty big. That way if our guys happen to turn early, they should catch it on their way to waypoint 2, no matter what. Move it a little bit closer. Okay. Oh yeah, and we only did one of these guys, so let's add a second one. Now, a lot of times what I will do, because they spawn in formation, they're pretty darn close to each other. I might do a copy, leave it as a single, do a copy paste, just real close, have them just like a mile, like combat spread, something like that. In fact, let's do that. So I'm just going to Control C and then Control V. There we go. And I don't know what the distance is going to be. 2 miles, that's a little far. There, we'll just move him in a little bit. And notice he spawns with number 001. Okay. Now, we want to make him late activation and the other one late activation, because we don't want them to start flying right at mission start. We want them to start flying once they are spawned by the planes entering this trigger zone. So up here on the left side, we're going to select this icon, which is our set triggers icon. We'll do a new one. It's a one-time trigger. For groups like this, units, you can only spawn them once. You can't make it so they keep respawning unless you're using scripting. I don't know of a way to do that. But anyway, yeah, we just want these two guys to come in anyway. So we're going to name this trigger spawn MiGs. Now the condition for this trigger is going to be, we'll say, part of group in zone, and we don't want a tanker, an AWACS, or these F-18s. We don't want anybody to spawn those MiGs except for this flight of land-based F-18s. So the group to spawn them will be, oh yeah, they're F-16, but they're really the F-18s, if you remember. And the zone is going to be spawn MiGs. So the trigger, the condition, and the action, what we want to have happen is group activate MiG-21, and then we can clone this and MiG-21-01. So we want both of those two guys to spawn. There we go. And we'll change that a little bit more so they're coming more towards the F-18 flight. In fact, I'm going to change this now. F-18. We'll go back to the trigger. And notice it actually changed it here as well. It's smart enough to figure that out. Okay. Now our package coming in. Let's say we want, if you get into scripting or whatever, you can have JTACs on the ground to call out targets and to put smoke on targets. But I'm going to show you how to do a smoke maker or a smoke marker without, just using the mission editor tools. So over here, we're going to put a trigger zone in as well, and we'll put it pretty close to where our targets are. And we're going to call this one smoke marker. And we'll just make the radius small, 50 feet, just so that this ring isn't obscuring anything. It's not actually going to be a 50-foot radius for the smoke marker. Alright, so right there is fine. Now, who do we want to trigger? We'll say we want these F-18s to trigger. So we'll do another trigger zone, and we'll call this one smoke trigger. And we'll do a 30,000 foot radius on that, so our guys they'll hit the trigger and proceed in, and then we should have some smoke for them. Now, the smoke is a little bit different because it's not a unit. we can make it a one-time smoke. We can make it repetitive action, meaning it's just going to be continuous. Or we can make it a switch condition where every time somebody flies through this, the smoke will trigger, because it'll go on for a few minutes and then it'll disappear. You could also make it just active from mission start. We'll make it a switch condition. How about that? The condition will say, we're just going to say part of coalition this time in zone, and we want the blue coalition in the smoke trigger zone. And the action will be a smoke marker, the zone smoke marker, and we'll make it red smoke. So now any blue aircraft that flies into that trigger zone will trigger that smoke marker down there. Okay. Let's say we want to have, we'll say maybe some Marines were dropped off on the beach somewhere down here, and they're going to proceed on in to try and take this base. So let's drop in US, let's call it the US convoy, and they're going to be armor, and we'll just make them a bunch of tanks. Okay, now I want to go to edit first before we do any waypoints. Notice I can place him pretty much wherever I want. Can't place him in the water though, of course. That's because right now it says off-road. As soon as I select on-road, it'll snap to the road. And now I'll add a waypoint. Let's see, how about we're going to make them drive down the road here, then they'll come here, and then they're going to park right up on this side and engage any units up here. Well, notice waypoint 3, they're still going to be following the airport road. We don't want that, so we're going to go to off-road for this one and edit. So they should come all the way down here. Oops, that's a little bit more of a turn there. Yeah, finding the correct routing can be kind of fun here. We're going to change it up. We're going to put these guys, maybe they were dropped up on this shore. There, we'll just do it that way. So waypoint 1 and then waypoint 2 is off-road, so they'll come down here and then they'll drive out onto the airfield. Now we want to make these guys late activation as well, and let's add a few more. We'll just add 5 tanks, there we go. Alright, so late activation, we're going to add an option of weapons free, and let's see, hang on, I want to delete that. We're going to go back to when they spawn in and add the option of weapons free. Now when we get to waypoint 2, we're going to give them a task of attack group. And we want the group to attack would be the air defenses, so they should attack all the air defenses here on the airfield. Now you can make enemy units attack them as well. If we had some enemy troops or vehicles, you could make artillery. Maybe we had some friendly artillery roll up over here. You can make them attack group, and they could bombard. You know, let's just do that. Here, let's select here, and we're going to do artillery. And we'll do the howitzers, the paladins. We'll just do 3 of them. And we'll just spread them out a little bit. And we're going to make them, let's say fire at point. And here, they're going to take out these man pads. So they're going to fire at this point with a radius of 500 feet. Maybe that's a little bit big. There. So they'll fire here, 300-foot radius. And then you could add another fire at point. They could fire and try and take out the planes that we made here. Whatever you want to do. The same way we did that, you could have these ships. If you go to add a task, fire at point, then the ships could, here, why don't we have the ships, they're going to fire at this SAM radar down here, and a zone radius of 100 feet. And you can do rounds to expend. Maybe we want to do 25 rounds. Here, let's drop the radius down to 50 feet. But you can have them start firing after times. So the condition for triggers, a bombing zone, maybe a JDAM would be in the zone, would start a trigger. You could have set flags. So say a unit, say the MiGs were destroyed, you could set a flag when that happens. That's just a marker, so to speak. So you would say flag equals 1, and then you could have time since flag. So the time since flag 1, the time since that MiG was killed, maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then have ships fire or somebody else fire, a group spawn, however you want to do it. Lots of different triggers for you to play around. But anyway, yeah, that's just kind of how you get that down. Let's delete that fire at point. We don't really want that right now. Okay, so that's kind of the basics right there of just how to design a pretty simple mission. Oh yeah, we wanted these guys. We put them late activation. We need to trigger them. So we're going to say, let's see, waypoint 0, waypoint 1, waypoint 2. So it takes 14 minutes for them to travel from this point to this point, from their spawn to there, and start firing. So why don't we spawn them when our planes are inbound? Is that they should come in, neutralize the threats, and then the troops come in afterwards. So let's just go back to our triggers, and let's see, let's delete that, and I'm going to clone this one, but I'm going to change it to a once, and spawn the convoy, part of coalition and zone in the smoke trigger. But then the action, we're going to change this to a group activate. And there we go, US convoy. Okay. So that is how you get that to go. And we could do the same with the artillery late activation. We want them to, let's see, fire at point. And they're firing over here. Rounds expended, let's see, we want them to do 30 rounds. Okay, and back to the trigger. Clone this one, and there we go. So artillery fires, takes care of these guys. The tanks roll in, takes care of these guys, and the plane should be long gone at that point. Last thing we would have to do, we could set the weather, date, time, temperature, add a little bit of clouds if you want, cloud density, wind, dust and smoke. If you add quite a bit of wind down low and then put the dust and smoke up just a little bit, looks pretty cool. Looks like a pretty neat sandstorm. I like doing that sometimes for a little bit of realism. But then we just save as, and we'll call this one demo 2. There we go. And then if you go to flight, you can fly mission, and that will give you the option to just go right in and fly it. But when you quit, you just quit right back to the mission editor. You don't have to exit and then reload the mission editor. Oh, and last thing I want to mention before we get out of here, the lat and longs down here. If you press left Alt Y, you can change between degrees, minutes, seconds. There's your MGRS, but you can cycle through all the different types of coordinates on here as well. Makes it pretty nice for getting things for your waypoints for your mission. So anyway, we'll save that again and exit. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll get to another one in the future, hopefully.